criminal defense attorney, Eboni K. Williams. And Eboni recently joined the team of, I guess, Eboni and Curtis and Eboni?
Curtis and Eboni.
Curtis and Eboni, okay. You ain't coming in with the leading name, I'm sure.
Not yet. You got to ease into this stuff, right?
Exactly. So you have some big shoes to fill because prior to you was Ron Kuby, correct? Another
correct.
well-known attorney.
Very well-known, legendary civil rights lawyer. Sure.
Yeah, actually, I sat in the trial, maybe one or two trials that Mr. Kuby conducted in the Bronx. One was involving Larry Davis, and that's when attorney Bill Kunstler, Lynn Stewart, and obviously Ron. That was a pretty big trial. So, I've seen some interesting trials in my days. So let's talk about this week is your first week with the show, correct?
Yes, it's my first week with Curtis, and it's been rocking and rolling because Monday we talked Bill Maher because, over the weekend he decided it was cute to use the N-word live on air.
Oh, stop it. Bill's my I won't say it, but it's cool.
Nobody said he's not cool, but I don't care how cool you are. No passes on that. No passes. Okay,
good. No, I'm being facetious. So how did that go with Bill Maher?
It was great because, he wasn't on the show, but Curtis and I were able to break down. Yeah, it was amazing. The calls were incredible. Everybody had a unique take on appropriate, not appropriate, appropriate in this context, who speaks for the Black community, who doesn't. It was awesome. Then, of course, today we had the Comey testimony. So we took a lot of that and dipped in and out of it for all 3 hours. It was amazing.
But before we go to the Comey testimony, which I pleasantly watched it today, let's talk about, because I didn't see your show. I didn't see your show with when you and Curtis were talking about Bill Maher. Now, what is the difference? I want to get your opinion. What is the difference in what Bill Maher said and Kathy Griffin said as comedians? Because they both are comedians. And
right.
If you watch old Richard Pryor stand-ups, he was hard as well, pretty hard in using words. I have a whole collection of Richard Pryor, and I don't think he was filtered too much either.
No, look, I appreciate Richard Pryor and any slew of provocative comedians that are unafraid to discuss race and gender and sex and class and all that stuff. That's not my issue. I am a Black person in this country who does not like the N-word. I don't give a damn who you are. I don't want it used whatsoever by anybody Black, white, brown, or purple. I'm not going to police the usage of the word by Black people because that's out of line from my vantage point. But no, I'm not here for Bill Maher's casual, flippant usage of the word for the sake of comedy or anything else. Now, Kathy Griffin, I was disgusted with what her attempt at humor was. But of course, they're both free speech issues. But I thought it was night and day. I thought Kathy Griffin was whack. I thought it was lazy. I didn't think it was funny. But at the same time, if you appreciate that kind of humor, go for it. I didn't think anything that Bill Maher did was funny at all. And I thought it was a cheap, lazy, low-hanging kind of opportunity. And the casual way in which he said it to me really was disturbing too. Like, that's just how he speaks all the time. And again, I'm not here for it.
So do you think the host of the show bear any responsibility in perhaps censoring him or really saying, well, we can't really do that on the show?
Well, it's his show. So he knows exactly how far he wants to go, and so he thought it was okay. He's said it before, and that's the issue, right? And that's where, as a Black community, I think we need to be more accountable as a collective, because you have certain Black people telling certain white people or others that they can say certain things. I like Kanye West going to a concert and telling people they can say "in" one night at his show while they sing along with "ins" in Paris. And I think it sends the wrong message. I think it sends a message that there's a cavalier, casual attitude about the way we are referred to as a people. And if you look at our Jewish friends, they don't play that. They don't do that. They really rarely refer to themselves. I've never heard it in a context of mixed company or without. So I think we just need to be done with it. I don't see any upside, and I see a lot of downside.
So you don't think even for artistic expression, when rappers, for example, use it in their lyrics, and you have like you said, Kanye West, Jay-Z, T.I., some of the biggest names in hip hop, Nicki Minaj. So you think it should just be totally NIGGA? As well as NIGGA.
I think it's whack. I just think there's so many other things to call us and call one another that are accurate reflections of who we are and what we represent. I think that's a historically negative one. And I don't really embrace that argument that Jay-Z and others make that we're somehow reclaiming that word and we're empowered, but I don't feel empowered by it whatsoever. So I'll tell my mom, cousins, boyfriends, friends, whoever, don't call me that. Don't refer to me as that, because I am many things, and that is not one of them.
I think that the word's not going anywhere no time soon. However, I do agree that
I think that's unfortunate. I think that's unfortunate. Again, let me use this as an example. So Michael Jackson had a song out off his History album. And for, like you said, artistic expression, the term was "fight me," and then the K word, which is a four-letter word that's a slur for the Jewish community. Okay, don't you black or white me. The Jewish community was so done with that they made Michael essentially go back, re-record the song, and you never heard from it again. That's how much they have stomped out that nasty, despicable term that refers to their people in a disparaging way. And frankly, I wish that my people would be a little more proactive around that stuff, because, you know, I don't know how much we can expect the world and society to fully respect us when I don't know. I don't think we do ourselves any favor by still breathing life into that type of terminology. Words matter. I am a lawyer by trade. I work in broadcasting professionally, both television and radio. So I know firsthand how much the power of verbiage and words can have, and they can seep into one's subconscious. And so another example from on air yesterday, I had a guest be on my Fox News show and refer to Obama as the Obama gang. The Obama gang, Hillary, Susan Rice, and the Obama gang. I said, excuse me, what did you say? He said, the Obama gang. I said, well, to me, what do you mean by that? Because to me, it sounds like it has a racial connotation. And Twitter was all upset, right? The Fox News viewers, many of them were very upset. I was being overly sensitive, PC police, whatever. Words have power. And I am not going to, on my watch, allow for anyone, black, white, brown, or purple, Republican, Democrat, I don't care, to refer to the first black president of these United States in the terminology of gang, when you and I both know that historically many people in this country and elsewhere primarily see black males specifically as associated with gang and gang culture and gang violence. So I didn't like that association. I didn't like that correlation. Just like I didn't like when Richard Sherman was referred to as a thug after he had, I guess, a little too much energy post that Aaron Andrews interview a few years ago when they were going to the Super Bowl. Richard Sherman is a Ivy League educated Super Bowl winner. How is he a thug? You know, thug gang. Words matter, and I don't like that type of verbiage when it comes to our people.
And I think the word thug has been thrown around quite loosely. I mean, you're a defense attorney, and I'm sure you've been in some trials and you've heard some interesting terminology come out of these trials.
All the time.
So yeah, I think that even the word thug is used too freely. I want to talk about Bill Cosby Trial right now, because obviously it's going on, and is at an accelerated speed. It was projected to be over in 2 weeks, but it looks like it may be over sooner than that. Recently, you spoke about Keisha Knight Pulliam appearing with Bill Cosby. Why did you think that was a bad move on her part?
Well, so I thought it was a bad move on her part. I have suspicions as to why she was there. Yes, I'm sure she was there to support Mr. Cosby as a mentor of hers and someone she's close to. But it also makes her relevant again. Who's talking about Keisha Knight Pulliam but for that photo op and statement that she released next to Mr. Cosby? What I thought it was a bad part on behalf of was the defense team. I actually don't think it did any favors for Mr. Cosby or his defense argument to have him kind of gleefully walking into a courtroom, smiling and talking with a woman who's in her early 30s. Keisha Knight Pulliam's like my age. And it just really, to me, wasn't a good look from a defense standpoint. I think in those moments, we've been seeing Bill Cosby look, blind almost and feeble and old. I think if that's a narrative that you want to stick with, you don't want to show him looking like the Cosby dad with pep in his step going into a trial with such serious offenses such as these types of sex assaults.
But on the other side of that, some defense attorneys may think that that may be a good strategy. He's walking into the courtroom with a female. He's being accused of these heinous acts of rape. So you as a defense attorney, don't you look at the optics and the perception the jury will have seeing someone like a Keisha Knight Pulliam? And there's 2 black jurors, if I'm correct, that is on this trial. And the Cosby Show has a legacy, and she's associated. While some people say she should have been in family court trying to collect that money from Mr.
Oh boy. Yeah,
oh boy, she was on the wrong floor, but she decided to come in there. And obviously, I see where you're coming from. There was a lot of cameras there outside that courthouse. So I don't know. Do you think that it could work both ways as far as her being there?
It could. Here's the thing: if there were an army of women that could vouch for his credibility. Now, if you have Felicia Rashad and Camille Cosby, his wife, who was suspiciously absent. Now, if it was Camille, Felicia Rashad, Lisa Bonet, Tempest Bledsoe, you got, and Keisha Knight Pulliam, you had, 9, 10, 11, 12, 14 women that could vouch and have an army of women surrounding Mr. Cosby going in. Now, those are good optics. Those are great optics. But, out of all the women this man has ever worked with in his legendary career of over 50 plus years, you got one woman that's willing to walk beside you on his first day of trial, and she was literally a snot-nosed kid when most of these allegations were occurring. I don't think those optics play out well at all.
So let's talk about, you mentioned Bill Cosby's wife, Camille, and I think that, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but her coming in the trial early on, as a show of support for her husband, could be a good thing, but it also can, based on the deposition that was read from the civil case, there was some infidelity in the marriage. But it's important for her to still be there to show she's standing by her husband.
Right.
Correct?
Right. Yeah, exactly. I mean, if I'm still with you, then where are you in my most dire moment of need? And if you can't be there for that day, what the hell am I with you for? Would be my attitude.
Well, I think we'll probably have a verdict on early next week.
Absolutely.
Guilty or not guilty, in your opinion?
Oh, well, I wouldn't dare speculate. I would have had to seen all the evidence and heard all the testimony, which only the 12 people in that jury box were privy to. But I suspect they're going to find Mr. Cosby guilty, actually. I think the testimony was pretty compelling. I think, although one other woman testified in addition to the primary Andrea Constant, those jurors knew that over 50 women made these accusations. I think it's pretty bad because look, Mr. Cosby, basically admitted to the behavior, but saying that it was consensual. So basically you'd have to have these jurors believe that Constant is going through all this to lie and say that she didn't do it. To have maybe a hung jury, but I don't think he gets a not guilty.
Well, explain to the audience what's the effect of a hung jury versus a not guilty?
Well, a hung jury would be, let's say, out of 12 jurors, if even one juror doesn't believe that he did it, which I could easily see one juror either for any reason, man, woman, black, white, whoever, just, not find this compelling enough to say beyond a reasonable doubt, 12 years later, they believe he did this, that they think there's enough evidence to prove that he did this, then you have a hung jury, a guilty conviction. I could see that.
Which essentially is a mistrial, correct?
Yeah. Well, it's not a mistrial. Yeah. Excuse me. It is a mistrial. It's a mistrial, a hung jury, and I think they would prosecute this trial again. I think if there's a mistrial, I don't think the prosecutors will spend the taxpayers' money to have another trial because the evidence, it is thin. Now, I will completely concede that. This is very thin evidence. It's basically she said, he said.
Yeah, and again, there are many people that have issues with the manner in which these women have come forward. But let me ask you another question. Why do you think that, one, there's a high level of support from the black community for Bill Cosby in this situation that he's dealing with?
Why there is not a high level of support from the black community?
Correct.
Well, two reasons. I think number one, Bill Cosby feels irrelevant to a lot of black people these days because his peak of his popularity is long gone. That's number one. Number two, Bill Cosby had made a lot of enemies amongst some in the black community with some of his rhetoric around us pulling ourselves up by our bootstraps, really chastising a lot of black people and black males in particular for not kind of relishing the family unit in a way that he felt was in our best interest. So I think a lot of people in the black community, quite frankly, feel like this is what Bill Cosby deserved. They feel like he kind of went the way of Hollywood elitism and associated himself primarily with that type. So then he's kind of getting the chickens coming home to roost.
Coming across as a hypocrite, and and I think that's pretty hard. Now let's talk about yesterday. I saw a video with one of, I don't know if he's your colleague, he's not your colleague, but Tucker Carlson and
he's my colleague.
He's your colleague. Okay, so you're Fox. Okay, Tucker Carlson and Lisa Durden, and he asked her a question about did she agree with the Black Lives Movement Memorial Day segregation policy? Did you see that?
Mm-hmm. I purposely did not see that.
You purposely? Why did you purposely not see that?
Because I knew it was a setup segment, and that happens across many various outlets. It's a setup segment. Let me tell you why I say that. Because you find an opposition viewpoint. We obviously know Tucker's a staunch conservative. You find somebody who has an opposition viewpoint. You invite him on your program to be on your turf to create a narrative that suits your audience. And I chose not to watch that because I didn't want to see somebody from my community be positioned that way.
You thought it was a set. Well, it's kind of hard. I wish you had seen that clip. It was really, really interesting. And I looked at the response to the interview, and the journalist Lisa Durden, she had received a lot of backlash from what she said.
Of course she did. She went on Tucker Carlson tonight, and which is fine, but with a narrative that is going to be received as very hostile to that audience.
Okay, can I pose the same question to you? What do you think? Do you think the Black Lives Matter movement should be able to have a Memorial Day exclusively for people of color?
Of course. This is America. Just like I think if there was a white supremacist group that wanted to have a Memorial Day off for themselves, they should be able to do that as well. And that's not an equation of Black Lives Matter and white supremacy. It's just to say that people can self-segregate to their choosing.
Okay. Well, Tucker should have had you on the show. Because that was her position as well, but she received extreme backlash from that, and even death threats, which I thought was crazy. But
yeah, look, being a Black person on Fox News is not for the faint of heart. Okay, even myself, and I'm not a particularly progressive or liberal person, but like that example I shared with you earlier, where I questioned one of my guests around his usage of the term Obama gang because it didn't sit well with me. And every day I'm on air, I have to live my truth and my consciousness and my authenticity. So it bothered me. So I asked him. And I've been called everything but a child of God in the past 24 hours by a lot of people, if you look at my Twitter feed. But I'm okay with that. I get that. I know that that's going to be the reaction. But nonetheless, I have to ask these questions because these are important distinctions to be made. Let's be responsible, me included. We have to be responsible for the things we say and what we mean by them and the implications of what we say, particularly on air in a national space.
So it's very that's very important what you said. Now you are on a show with Curtis Slewa. Curtis is what's the word I want to say? Curtis is very animated. Curtis has been like that, and I can tell you Curtis has been like that since I've known Curtis, which is over 30 years. So what do you feel you bring to his dynamic, what he does on his show?
I bring a lot. You know, Curtis is a vet. He's a pro. He's been doing this for, like you said, 30 years. But I am half Curtis's age, and I am a young Black woman who's new to New York City. I've been here for 3 years. So we really come from different worlds. And that's really interesting because you've got two people from two different worlds having conversations around the same things that everyone else in New York and across the country is concerned with, whether that's healthcare, whether that's fertility. We talked about donor eggs yesterday, and I didn't even know because one of my good girlfriends is going through fertility issues right now, trying to conceive with her husband and suffered miscarriages. So they're considering donor eggs. And I wanted to know, if you do that, should you tell your child born of said donor egg that they're not your DNA? And Curtis, unbeknownst to me, has lived this. Curtis has 3 sons that are the products of donor eggs. So he was able to speak to the issue more authentically even than I was. And I'm the woman in the conversation. So Curtis and I are able to play off a fantastic crevice of our personality and life experience. And it's so, I mean, we're literally 4 days in, and so far it's been incredible.
I'm really going to catch the show. And it's a generational thing as well. You know, obviously Curtis has been around. I mean, and I can tell you from before David Dinkins, we dealt with Mayor Ed Koch. You know, he's now
familiar.
And we, you know, as a former member of the Guardian Angels, we had some hard times dealing with Mayor Koch. It wasn't until I guess David Dinkins and Rudy Giuliani received the Guardian Angels well. But you're from the West Coast.
Well, I was out there for 5 years. I'm from the South. I'm from Charlotte, North Carolina.
Charlotte, whoa.
Yep.
That city is really developing. But you spent 5 years. You spent 5 years in Los Angeles. Did you practice law in Los Angeles?
A little bit. I did some contract work, but most of my legal experience was in North Carolina, Charlotte, and then the Triangle, Raleigh, Chapel Hill, Durham, that area.
Okay. What was one of your most memorable criminal cases that you defended?
Well, I worked a bit on the Michael Vick dog bite case. I worked a bit on the Dupla Cross case. So those were some big high-profile cases.
So you worked on the Dupla Cross case. That was very big case, actually.
Yes, yeah. My former boss, Butch Williams, aggressively worked to make sure that one of the teammates was not indicted because it was very faulty, flimsy testimony.
Talking about testimony, what did you think about Comey testimony today? And some of the things were said. For example, I have to note that he was the first I guess, former FBI director who called a sitting president a liar.
That we know of.
That we know of. And anyone else would have did that would be J. Edgar Hoover. And we have to do a little research because I know Mueller didn't do it that we know of.
No.
What do you think about his testimony?
Honestly, I didn't think that much of it. I really, you know, I appreciate where he's coming from. I appreciate his right. And I think it was very important to get in front of that committee in an open setting and say his side of things, because certainly President Trump's been saying his side of things. And I don't think it's fair for that to go unchallenged. But I didn't get any big bombshells. To me, Jim Comey said exactly what I expected him to say, that much of what President Trump has said about him is a lie, if not almost all of it. To say that President Trump isn't under personal investigation, and that's what he affirmed. To say that he felt absolutely he was being instructed to drop that Flynn probe and investigation, and that made him very uncomfortable. He said what I already suspected, which is that he spoke out about Hillary Clinton in July, and saying that he was not moving forward to indict, primarily because Loretta Lynch made a very poor decision as to meet with President Clinton on that tarmac and compromise herself in that moment. And so Comey felt like she couldn't really come out and make a decision publicly on whether to prosecute or not prosecute Hillary Clinton. So he kind of fell on the sword to defend the credibility of the FBI and the Justice Department. So everything he said, I pretty much anticipated. And I think if you've been paying attention in this news cycle, you should have as well.
Well, one of the things that kind of disturbed me was when he testified that he leaked a document to one of his former professors to be leaked to the media. And I want to know how many times has he leaked stuff as an FBI director and I mean, that's kind of disturbing that, you have the director.
A lot of people felt that way. Here's the thing. He leaked it he admitted to today as a private citizen, right? So after he was fired, basically it was that memo was an insurance policy. He wrote all that stuff down to say, hey, I don't trust this guy. I don't know what he's going to say, what he's not going to say, where he's coming from. Let me take some receipts, so to speak, as the kids would say, and let my homeboy see them if and when the time comes for that to be needed or appropriate. That's what he basically told us today. Now, whether or not he's done so as the sitting FBI director and therefore being a real illegal leak, maybe, perhaps, but we didn't get that today. But I do think you're right. There's going to be millions of people across this country now that are going to have suspicions around whether or not Jim Comey leaks, not just when it's appropriate, quote unquote, but did so when it was very much inappropriate and even illegal. So now that suspicion will be out there.
But what else he said was his reason for leaking it is with hopes of getting a special prosecutor to look over the Russian probe investigation.
And that's what happened. It worked like a charm.
Pretty manipulative of a, well, hey, we know the history of that.
Right. And so that's what people do in Washington, right? If you're not going to do what I think is best and what I've asked you to do on your own volition, then let me see what cards I can play to make you do what I want you to do or what I think is in the best interest of the country, is what Comey would say. So that's it. That's lightweight as far as I'm concerned. That's what people do.
Well, I think also the fact that he testified today that when he was in the Oval Office, Trump asked Attorney General to leave, Priebus to leave, Kushner to leave the room. That was pretty powerful when he said that. Although we knew that because it was leaked, obviously. We knew that. But that's significant. I think you can deduct from those actions that there was something that he wanted to say to him in private that was inappropriate. You kind of draw that conclusion.
I don't know. I don't draw that conclusion. I think that he definitely wanted to talk to him off the record, for sure, but not necessarily to ask him to do something inappropriate. Maybe, absolutely, maybe, but maybe not.
Well, we'll know when those memos that
Yes.
strategically unclassified are released.
That's right. Well, thank you so much. I do have to run, but this was fantastic. And I'm really glad we got a chance to speak about some hot topics. And hopefully we could do it again soon.
Thank you, Eboni. And I look forward to tuning into your show. You guys are online as well, so we can tune in online and listen, correct?
That's exactly right. WABCradio.com. Monday through Friday, 12 to 3.
Thank you, Eboni. I'll be tuning in and watching you. Hopefully we can do this again soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.